Culture is the unwritten rules that define how a company functions. I'm the founder of Startups of London, and we've been interviewing London's startups over the last 6 months. So far, we've visited more than 15 startups and asked them the question, how do you define your startup culture? What are the key pillars of your company culture? And there were some very interesting responses. The key theme here is that founders do love talking about culture. They do pay lip service to that, but do they really practice it in their businesses? Let's see some of the key answers, some popular responses to the questions we've asked.
We hire for culture and DNA first. That's the absolute most important thing for us. So we've very, very strict on who we hire. So we've got an internal DNA document that we share with all of the people who are going to join us. How we like to try and act on a day-to-day basis, what we're trying to do. So it'll be like, for example, we hire people who are autonomous. So we don't want to micromanage anyone. We're very keen just to let people get on with it. We trust people just to get on with it. We're an output type of company, not hours at desk. Hours at the desk. You know, it's all things that are the best ways to build a team.
I think one thing I found challenging, and it is communication. It is a big one. Is how do you make sure that people are aligned and people the right people understand the right things at the right time. And that gets increasingly difficult when you have an increase in the number of teams, the number of people. You want to make sure they're all pointed at the right things. Are we working on the most important problems? In a business like this, where you've got a service, so there's people focused on finding the right carers and finding the best one and helping them get onto placements. And then you've got great software engineers who are building, some of the customer and carer-facing products. Then you've got people in marketing. You've got people in lots of different things who may be working on overlapping problems, but you want to make sure that they're all that they're empowered, they're accountable for stuff. So I think that's the big challenge for me. I think communication, planning, really making sure that that just core engine of the business is working well. And I think in terms of the role of the CEO, that becomes a lot of what you do. You're making sure you've got cash in the bank, so you're well funded and capitalized. You're making sure that you hire the best talent, so you've got the best people. You make sure you're pointing the right way, so strategically, that you feel you're working on the right things, and I guess also you're holding people accountable. So that great talent you've hired, you're making sure that people understand how they need to progress and what they're delivering on.
For me, the critical thing is enabling people to grow and flourish in the role. It's a startup. It's moving very quickly. It's sometimes a little disorganized. So like any startup, it basically kind of moves quite quickly. But I think the important thing is basically having that kind of culture where people feel like they can grow within the role.
Interestingly, we've moved from values to behaviors, and I'll tell you the difference. Values are a little bit more conceptual, so for example, dare to lead as a value. And we've moved to more literal values because we found that in India, they wanted it to be more specific so that they can go, yes, I did it. So we have behaviors like delivered on time, delighted the customer, because you can really go, yeah, I did that.
Culture is built on key pillars. Actions, rituals, symbols, and stories. These have differing levels of importance in each startup culture. But one theme underlying all of those is that culture is the way startups compete both with each other and with other bigger organizations to actually get the best talent working for them.
So we have ideas about what we need in terms of skill sets and ideas in terms of who we get on really well with in terms of people. So we know what we want to achieve, okay? We know our problem really, really well, and we're getting to know it better every day. But we genuinely put a lot of responsibility on every member of the team to deliver. We're pretty flexible in terms of how people work with the company. All we ask is that people do their best work. And part of that is not being happy with things that are suboptimal, and not being happy with things that aren't working. We're fortunate enough to be sort of quite compact still, so there's 26 of us now, and although we'll be growing sort of a little bit bigger over the next few months, I think people just generally have to feel like they can do their best work here.
In London, our students come from very different backgrounds, nationality, culture, and age. So I have a student that are 20 years old from Indonesia, let's say, and a 45 that's from South Africa. And to be honest, at the moment, only the instructors is British. We have a community of wilders, that's why we call our alumni and the staff as well, that we all can communicate on Slack and everywhere, so we can exchange best practice of working everywhere in Europe. Community, it's a personal interaction, so you can have millions of followers, but community is what is every day in here in the school. It's the safe space that we create for you to come here every day in a good mood or in a bad, but we're here to learn, to help each other.
One of the things that we have to be really, really careful of is how do you make sure this person is A, going to be able to do a job, because you need to make sure they can add to the value of the company, but most importantly, how can they add to the culture of the business? And they kind of go from big hearts, sharp minds, fierce drive, curious souls and true spirits. The reason it works in that order is big hearts. We need to have people that are going to come into the team and be team players. Look out for themselves, but also look out for everyone within the team. In terms of the sharp minds, one thing that we constantly look for is the right answer. We don't necessarily need to be right. In terms of the fierce drive, goes back to what I mentioned at the start. People come into the office, we want them to come into the office. You know, it's half of your waking life that you're choosing to commit to a company. It's really important to have that kind of drive and ambition to want to achieve and do more. In terms of the curious souls, again, constantly asking questions. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And then in terms of true spirits, again, we want to have people that are true in what they do. They stick by what they do. They are very kind of motivated and true to themselves.
It's very interesting. We've recently been doing some culture work to try to identify the things that make this a place where people love to work, and people do love to work here. They really commit tremendously. I'm not one of those entrepreneurs who expects or demands that people work nights and weekends. I think that's fundamentally wrong to demand and to bully. But people work insanely long hours because they want to. And what is it about the culture that they like it here? It's the intellectual challenge of successfully addressing hard problems. We recruit bright people here because it means that they can interact smoothly, fluidly, and move forward quickly.
Well, we always made a point to invest quite a lot in our company culture from the beginning. Like when we were growing the team quite a lot, we knew how important it was to make sure that everyone enjoyed working here. And I think it's quite easy for all of us to be quite passionate about what we do. We're all sort of on the same mission. We don't have a sort of culture where the managers really tell the employees what to do. I think it's very sort of collaborative. It's very important for people to especially managers, to say when they don't know something or when they or to make a mistake and to learn from that and to fail fast, as we say. And people are given quite a lot of autonomy and responsibility. Being a startup, it's important to be able to own things and take initiative, and we reward that quite a lot here. And it's not a sort of punitive type of style where if you do something bad or if you fail in any way, then you're met with consequences.
When it comes to culture, okay, that's super important in terms of engaging your people. Everyone in our business has equity in the business, right? They hold shares of some description or other. That's super important, right? It's super important that everyone, when you join a business, a startup business that's working on something, ambitious, right? You want to make sure that the reason everyone joins that business is because they are willing to commit their hard work and energy to build something out of nothing. We have a very flat senior management team, so there's no real hierarchy. I sit alongside, the CEO, the chief product officer, the chief operating officer, the COO, and together we sit and we make decisions. That said, the culture of the business is not the senior management team. The culture of the business is the people, right? It's everyone. Yeah. And to that extent, we desperately try to build a business that is engaging, rewarding, and understanding of the people who build that business. We get out of bed in the morning to do something that we all believe is going to have a fundamental impact on the way we live.
The overall culture in London's startups and within this ecosystem, what can we say about this? First of all, it is very diverse. Most of the organizations, in terms of hierarchy, they are very flat. People are respected. It is, in a way, to be frank, even luxurious in very clear terms compared to some of the other working conditions around the world. But nonetheless, it is very demanding from the people side as well. Startup founders want people to feel part of the teams, so they are willing to give up equity and share the success of the company with the people they are working with. Overall, it is one of the strongest ecosystems in the world. People are very lucky to be part of the startups here in London, but it has its own growth areas as well. These were some of the insights that we've gathered over the batch of interviews we've done in the last 6 months. Hope that was useful to you. I'll see you in the next one.